Truman claimed he never lost a night of sleep over his decision, and to this day the United States has never apologized for it. Still, the horror of Hiroshima and Nagasaki firmly cemented atomic bombs as the world's weapons of absolute last resort.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at the biggest blunders made by world leaders and political figures that had significant historical consequences for their nations and across the globe.
Despite facing a Red Army with almost 3 million men on its western border, Hitler is confident of victory.
Russia selling Alaska. In the 1700s, Russian citizens arrived in Alaska, primarily as fur trappers, later settling up a colony. However, by the 1850s, the local sea otter population was nearly gone. Russia had further issues due to the Crimean War. Plus, there was the threat of gold being found in Alaska, as the region was difficult to defend. So Emperor Alexander II negotiated with the U.S. to sell Alaska. Due to the American Civil War taking over the government's attention, the deal wasn't officially struck until 1867, when they paid Russia $7.2 million, around $154 million in 2025. Alexander was proved right when gold was found in Alaska in the late 1890s, followed by oil in 1968. However, it also meant losing a lot of money. Charles I's ship money.
The king levied a forced loan and imprisoned those who refused to pay.
Believing he had a divine right to rule England after his ascension in 1625, Charles I began clashing with Parliament. In order to circumvent the politics, he initiated ship money in 1628. This was a tax that allowed monarchs to force coastal areas to furnish ships during war. However, Charles wanted it every year regardless.
Parliament tried to stop him, but in 1629, Charles simply dismissed Parliament and didn't recall it for another 11 years.
Most people were furious with this display of power. John Hampden, a member of Parliament, refused to pay. In 1638, Hampden's trial ruled that 7 of the 12 judges found the tax legal. Because 5 didn't, Charles's reputation was destroyed. This was a key factor in the English Civil Wars, which ended with Charles being executed in 1649 and England becoming a republic.
Lord, let us now thy servant depart in peace according to thy word. For mine eyes have seen thy salvation, which thou hast prepared before the face of all people. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Ghost, as was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be.
William Seward takes a trip.
Secretary of State William H. Seward often seemed to dominate the cabinet. He expected to be president himself, and it took him a while to accept that Lincoln, not he, was in charge.
Running up to the 1860 Republican National Convention, there was one standout name that seemed destined to become the party's presidential nominee, Seward. New York's senator and former governor was known for his anti-slavery views.
Seward also met many slaves, hiding them here in the downstairs kitchen, which became a stop on the Underground Railroad.
However, this caused issues with some groups. In 1859, Seward took a 9-month trip to Europe, meeting Queen Victoria and the Middle East. When he returned to the U.S., he was blamed for inspiring abolitionist John Brown's raid in Harper's Ferry, Virginia, which ended with his execution. At the convention, Seward dominated the first ballot, but by the second, delegates began switching to Abraham Lincoln, closing the gap. In the end, Lincoln won the nomination and later the presidency, leading to the Civil War and the Union's victory in 1865. Guadalupe Conference. West backs Khomeini.
Grand Ayatollah Khomeini, a leading religious scholar, became the spiritual leader of the Iranian Revolution.
In January 1979, France's President Valéry Giscard d'Estaing, U.S. President Jimmy Carter, Chancellor of West Germany Helmut Schmidt, and British Prime Minister James Callaghan met in Guadalupe to discuss global issues. One of the main topics was the Iranian Revolution, which had been going on for a year, with the seed sown decades ago. The Western leaders decided not to help Iran's monarch, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, believing the situation would get worse. A month later, Pahlavi, who'd left the country following the conference, abolished the monarchy. This enabled Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini to take control, who soon proved he wasn't an ally of the West.
The constitution was written around Khomeini's ideology of Velayat-e-Faqih, a religious guardianship of the country.
As he supported the Iran hostage crisis at the U.S. Embassy, even calling the country, quote, Great Satan. Napoleon executing the Duke of Enghien.
How would you like to approach this, monsieur?
With style and good manners, we shall knock politely on the front door.
In 1804, shortly before he became Emperor of France, but still the first consul of the French Republic, Napoleon Bonaparte heard about a conspiracy of royalists looking to re-establish the monarchy. This caused him to issue the arrest of Louis-Antoine, the Duke of Enghien, and a member of the House of Bourbon. However, there was no evidence Antoine was involved. Regardless, he was executed.
Fire!
This caused shockwaves across global royal families, leading Russia to backtrack on potential peace with Napoleon and siding against France alongside Austria and Britain. The Antoine incident severely dented Napoleon's reputation, making his first rule appear more tyrannical. This caused a loss of support for France and his final defeat in 1815. Philip II handing the Spanish Armada to the 7th Duke of Medina Sidonia.
We can't get anywhere near them.
We have to break their formation. It's our only chance.
If you planned a mass naval invasion of a country, you'd give the responsibility to an experienced and decorated officer. However, that wasn't the direction Philip II of Spain took. After Mary, Queen of Scots, was executed in 1587, Philip sought to overthrow England's Queen Elizabeth I to restore Catholicism in the Protestant country. So, in 1588, he initiated the Spanish Armada, a fleet to invade the country. Philip entrusted its leadership to Alonso de Guzman y Sotomayor, 7th Duke of Medina Sidonia. However, he had no military experience on land or sea. This, mixed with bad weather, poor communication, and disease spreading, allowed the English Navy to destroy the fleet.
To such religious men, it must feel like God himself has turned against Spain.
Treaty of Versailles harsh terms.
If you think of September the 11th, but then you think of September the 11th style casualties every day for 4 years, then you begin to get some kind of feeling of what the sort of trauma was that existed in the Western countries and the Allied countries at the time, particularly in Britain and in France, which had never known levels of casualties of the kind that they'd experienced between 1914 and 1918.
Following the armistice in 1918, ending World War I, the Treaty of Versailles was signed in 1919. The document declared Germany was seen as the main instigator of the war.
We were journeying to Paris not merely to liquidate the war, but to found a new order in Europe. We were preparing not peace only, but eternal peace. There was about us the halo of some divine mission. We must be alert, stern, righteous, and ascetic, for we were bent on doing great, permanent, and noble things.
As such, they received severe punishment. From 1921, Germany had to pay the Allies around $33 billion in reparations, nearly $582 billion in 2025. This had a devastating impact on Germany's economy, exacerbated by the Great Depression. The treaty also carved up the German Empire's territories and forced them to demilitarize. The harshness of the treaty, which angered German citizens, is believed to have been a key instigator in Adolf Hitler's rise to power, sparking World War II.
For 6 months, it was the closest we have ever had to a world government, and I don't suspect we'll ever have anything like it again. You can imagine all the most powerful people in the world here, prime ministers, kings, presidents, foreign secretaries, plus all the people who came because they were here.
Atahualpa getting intoxicated.
In less than a century, his people had built the biggest empire ever known in the Americas at that time, and his death signaled the end of that great empire.
In 1532, following a civil war, Atahualpa became the monarch of the Inca Empire, one of the most powerful to have existed. That same year, Spain began its conquest of Peru and the Incan Empire. One of the leaders of the conquest, Francisco Pizarro, invited Atahualpa to a meeting. However, according to some accounts, the monarch had been drinking heavily during the journey. When he met with Friar Vicente de Valverde, Atahualpa threw his religious book back at him, causing Valverde to call for Pizarro, who had his soldiers hiding, to attack. With the element of surprise and advanced weaponry, the Spanish destroyed Atahualpa's army without losing a soldier. They captured Atahualpa, leading to his execution and essentially the end of the Incan Empire.
Staring into the face of the man he had condemned to death. Perhaps he hoped that the emperor would have some understanding of the situation that had forced his hand.
U.S.'s devastating mistranslation.
The U.S. had a choice: an invasion of Japan requiring 1 million troops or a top-secret weapon. The Japanese were given an ultimatum: surrender or suffer dire consequences.
In 1945, U.S. President Harry S. Truman, U.K. Prime Minister Winston Churchill, and Chairman of China Chiang Kai-shek issued the Potsdam Declaration to request Japan's surrender from World War II. If the country didn't, they would experience, quote, prompt and utter destruction. After discussion, Japanese officials released a statement with the phrase makusatsu, which is made from the words for silent and killing. The U.S. took this as officials rejecting or ignoring the request. They proceeded to deploy atomic explosives in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, obliterating infrastructure and taking the lives of tens of thousands.
When we came back after the surrender, we came back to the same area, and the whole city was completely flat. It was really devastating to see.
Japan soon surrendered. Researchers later found that mokusatsu could have an alternate meaning. It could have also meant to withhold comment while they contemplated the declaration.
Truman claimed he never lost a night of sleep over his decision, and to this day the United States has never apologized for it. Still, the horror of Hiroshima and Nagasaki firmly cemented atomic bombs as the world's weapons of absolute last resort.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into Settings and switch on your notifications. Hitler's invasion of Russia.
Hitler's decision to invade the Soviet Union was his greatest gamble of the Second World War.
In 1939, Joseph Stalin's Soviet Union signed a non-aggression pact with Germany, with plans for the two nations to divide Eastern Europe between them. However, with competing political ideologies, the relationship rapidly changed as Germany began running rampant across Europe. In 1941, Hitler issued Operation Barbarossa, an invasion of Russia, tearing up their pact.
Despite facing a Red Army with almost 3 million men on its western border, Hitler is confident of victory.
However, it didn't go to plan when they faced a massive army, harsh weather, and brutal tactics. Losses on both sides mounted into the millions. Germany had spread itself too thin by facing massive battles on two fronts. The lack of progress caused former Axis nations to defect to the Allies, as Germany lost momentum and eventually the war. What other influential political mistakes did we miss from the video? Let us know below.
My fellow citizens, at this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.